Imagine this for a moment. A country that's been sanctioned for decades. A country that isn't an economic superpower. A country with no fleet of aircraft carriers roaming the world. And yet, it steps forward and declares, "We are ready for war with the United States." So the real question is, how can they say that with a straight face? Because this isn't an empty threat. It isn't just political theater or a war of words. It's the kind of statement that forces the Pentagon and Israel's security establishment to reconsider Iran every single time they run the numbers. What exactly does Iran have in its hands? What kind of weapons? What level of capability? What makes even the world's most powerful militaries hesitate just for a second before they underestimate this country? Tonight, we're taking you deep inside the arsenal, the strategy, and the doctrine that allow Iran to challenge Israel and stand eye to eye with the United States. This isn't a news clip. This is a documentary-style breakdown that will make one thing clear. Iran's boldness isn't built on speeches. It's built on capabilities the world still doesn't fully understand. Hello and welcome to Talking World Today. Today, we're taking you inside one of the most serious questions the world is asking right now. Why does a country that has lived under decades of sanctions like Iran dare to take such a hardline stance, challenging both Israel and the United States, two of the world's leading military powers? This is not a question that can be answered by daily headlines or a few political statements. Because behind Iran's confidence lies a military structure, a technological foundation, and a strategic doctrine that has been quietly built over many decades.
If we look at Iran only on the surface, we see a nation constrained economically, cut off from the global financial system and under constant pressure from the West. But from another angle, Iran is a country that has adapted, and adapted well. Instead of competing in areas where it is weakest, Iran chose to invest strategically in what it lacked most: weapons and military technology that don't need to be the most expensive, but must impose the highest possible cost on any adversary.
The first thing to understand is this. Iran has never aimed to defeat the United States or Israel in a direct, head-on confrontation. Iran knows that fighting army against army, aircraft against aircraft, or warship against warship is a losing game. What Iran chose instead was to build capabilities that force its opponents to think twice every single time before considering war.
At the core of this approach is a concept known as cost imposition deterrence. It means that even if Iran cannot win a war outright, it can ensure that the damage inflicted on the opposing side would be unacceptably high, measured in lives, economic disruption, and political instability.
When we look at Iran's military capabilities, the most frequently discussed element is its missile arsenal. Today, Iran is considered one of the countries with the most diverse missile inventories in the Middle East. This includes short-range missiles, medium-range systems, and missiles capable of striking targets thousands of kilometers away.
What makes Iran's missile force particularly dangerous is not just its size, but how it is designed to be used. Iran develops missiles that are far cheaper than Western weapons, yet can be launched in large numbers simultaneously, directly challenging expensive air defense systems.
Defensive systems like Iron Dome or Patriot can be highly effective, but when faced with dozens or even hundreds of incoming missiles at once, these systems encounter serious limitations, both in capacity and in cost. In many cases, a single interceptor missile can cost several times more than the missile it is trying to destroy.
This is the economics of modern warfare, and Iran understands it deeply. Iran doesn't need to level entire cities. By creating constant uncertainty and sustained risk, it can erode public confidence and place long-term pressure on political leadership.
Beyond missiles, another area where Iran has invested heavily is drones. Iranian drones are not designed to be flashy or technologically extravagant. They are designed to be mass-produced, easy to operate, and capable of causing real damage.
These drones can be used for surveillance, precision strikes, and attacks on critical infrastructure, such as oil facilities, military bases, and energy systems. The key factor is cost. A single drone is extremely cheap compared to the weapons required to intercept it.
When missiles and drones are used together, the strategic picture becomes clearer. This is a combined arms approach, forcing enemy defenses to deal with multiple types of threats at the same time.
But Iran's power doesn't stop at its own borders. What truly sets Iran apart is its regional network of allies and proxy forces across the Middle East.
Iran does not view war through the lens of national borders. Instead, it projects influence through allied groups across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Gaza. These groups function as both defensive buffers and offensive pressure points simultaneously.
For Israel, this is deeply concerning. It means that in the event of conflict, pressure could come from multiple directions at once, not from a single front.
From the perspective of the United States, these networks also represent risk to American bases and interests throughout the Middle East. A confrontation might not begin with a direct Iranian strike, but through escalating tensions across several theaters at the same time.
This makes any decision to use force against Iran extraordinarily complex, politically and militarily. The consequences would not be confined to one country, but could spread across the entire region.
When we put all these elements together, missiles, drones, proxy networks, and deterrence strategy, we begin to understand why Iran dares to say what many countries would never say.
This confidence does not come from believing victory is guaranteed. It comes from calculating who would pay the higher price if war truly began.
And that leads us to a much larger question the world must now confront. In an era where weapons don't need to be the most expensive, only effective enough to impose massive costs, how is the balance of power changing?
Iran's story is not just about one country. It is a reflection of modern warfare itself, where dominance is no longer measured only by aircraft carriers or the latest fighter jets, but by the ability to prevent war from starting in the first place.
Now that we understand the foundational structure of Iran's military capabilities, the next step is to look deeper into the mindset of Iran's leaders and strategic planners. They do not see war as a short-term event, but as a long-term process, one that requires preparation measured in decades. Iran learned a painful lesson from the Iran-Iraq War. Reliance on foreign weapons places a country in extreme danger. When external support is cut off, vulnerability becomes immediate. That experience pushed Iran onto a very different path: military self-reliance.
This path led Iran away from developing overly complex or unnecessary systems. Instead, it focused on weapons that are easy to repair, domestically produced, and adaptable to real battlefield conditions. Many Iranian weapons may not appear sophisticated or impressive by Western standards, but they are designed to function under pressure, when it matters most.
One critical element that is often overlooked is Iran's decentralized military structure. Rather than concentrating all combat power within a single command system, Iran distributes forces, capabilities, and decision-making across multiple units and locations. The goal is simple: make the system as a whole extremely difficult to destroy with a single strike.
This philosophy is clearly reflected in how Iran stores and deploys its missiles. Iran has developed extensive underground infrastructure, mountains, tunnels, and mobile launch platforms, making it nearly impossible for adversaries to identify and neutralize every target with precision.
For the United States and Israel, this presents a genuine strategic dilemma. Even the most accurate airstrikes can only destroy part of Iran's capabilities. There is no guarantee that Iran's ability to retaliate could be eliminated entirely.
That uncertainty is exactly what Iran uses as a tool of deterrence. Opponents cannot know how many weapons remain, where they are hidden, or when they might be launched.
Beyond physical weapons, Iran places a strong emphasis on less visible dimensions of warfare: electronic warfare and cyber operations. Iran has invested steadily in these capabilities,
viewing them as a way to narrow the technological gap with global powers.
Cyber warfare allows Iran to target critical infrastructure without direct military engagement, while also reducing the risk of triggering a full-scale retaliation.
Strategically, the combination of low-cost weapons, domestically produced systems, and cyber tools enables Iran to apply pressure at multiple levels simultaneously.
This helps explain why many confrontations in the region do not escalate into full-scale wars. All sides understand that escalation could lead to outcomes that are difficult or impossible to control.
Another key factor is Iran's use of proxy forces. This strategy allows Iran to expand influence without direct confrontation with major powers. These groups are highly flexible, adaptive, and capable of maintaining sustained pressure at low to medium intensity.
For Iran, proxy forces are not about controlling every move. They are about creating an environment in which adversaries must constantly remain alert on multiple fronts.
Such an environment makes any plan to strike Iran directly far more complex. The consequences would not be confined to targets inside Iran, but would ripple across the entire region.
From Israel's perspective, this represents a structural threat. National defense must be prepared for simultaneous pressure from multiple directions: missiles, drones, and Iran-aligned groups acting at the same time.
From the outside, Iran's behavior may appear provocative or confrontational, but from Iran's perspective, this is about demonstrating that it is not a target that can be attacked without cost.
And those costs extend far beyond the battlefield, into economic disruption, political instability, and public confidence within opposing countries.
This strategic calculation allows Iran to adopt a hardline rhetorical posture without necessarily crossing the threshold into full-scale war.
That is why many confrontations ultimately end in de-escalation rather than major conflict.
In the modern world, military strength is no longer measured only by the number of weapons, but by the ability to prevent an adversary from using force in the first place.
Iran understands this principle well and has made it its core of its security strategy.
When we step back and look at the full picture, it becomes clear that Iran is not acting without direction. It is steadily constructing conditions that make it a critical variable in the Middle East security equation.
That equation continues to evolve, and what Iran does today is already influencing the decisions of major powers tomorrow.
This is why threats, warnings, and hardline statements from Iran cannot be dismissed lightly.
Because behind those words lies a military and strategic structure built methodically and patiently over many years.
As the world begins to understand this reality, the central question shifts from whether Iran would dare to act to whether anyone could truly control the outcome if confrontation ever begins.
That question remains open, and it is one that analysts around the world are now taking very seriously.
When we place all these elements together in a structured way, the image of Iran as a country willing to challenge global powers becomes far clearer. What Iran has built is not a military designed for quick victory, but one designed to make war prolonged, complex, and unbearably costly for its opponents.
This is the core of Iran's deterrence strategy. Iran does not need to be the one that starts a war. What matters is ensuring that any adversary understands one thing clearly. Once a war begins, it will not end easily, and no one will leave the battlefield unscathed.
In the case of Israel, the risk is not limited to a direct strike from Iran. It lies in the possibility of multiple fronts opening simultaneously: long-range missiles, drones, and pressure from regional allies, all of which could place enormous strain on Israel's defense systems and critical infrastructure.
For the United States, the danger may not be an attack on the homeland itself, but the vulnerability of military bases, strategic interests, and allied stability across the Middle East, one of the most geopolitically sensitive regions in the world.
What truly distinguishes Iran from many of its rivals is its ability to tolerate higher levels of loss and its long-term strategic patience. Iran has conditioned its society to endure pressure, sanctions, and uncertainty for decades.
By contrast, societies in major powers often face far higher political costs when it comes to casualties and economic damage. This makes the decision to enter a large-scale war subject to intense scrutiny and calculation.
This creates a fragile but powerful balance. Iran may not be able to defeat a global power in conventional warfare, but it can create conditions that make global powers unwilling to initiate war in the first place.
So, when we return to the original question, what does Iran have that allows it to challenge major powers? The answer is not a single weapon, but an entire interconnected system: missiles, drones, electronic warfare, cyber operations, and regional alliances.
This system gives Iran multiple response options, from direct retaliation to indirect pressure to sustained uncertainty without ever formally declaring war.
For the outside world, this serves as a warning. Future conflicts may not begin with a clear first shot, but may instead expand gradually through small, interconnected events.
In this context, Iran is not merely reacting to pressure. At certain levels, it is shaping the tempo and conditions of the game itself.
That is why assessing Iran requires a holistic view, not fragmented analysis of individual capabilities.
For viewers like us, understanding this is not about choosing sides, but about understanding the world as it truly is, where power in the 21st century is no longer measured only by traditional military strength, but by the ability to impose unacceptable costs on an adversary.
The world is changing, and the nature of warfare is changing with it. Iran stands as one of the clearest examples of adaptation under sustained pressure.
Looking ahead, the critical question may no longer be whether Iran will start a war, but how the world will manage this new balance of power.
A balance in which no side wins decisively, but every side must move with extreme caution.
And this is the core message of today's documentary. Iran is not strong because of weapons alone, but because of its ability to make its enemies hesitate before using force.
Before we go, if you have your own perspectives on Iran's military capabilities and their impact on global security, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments.
If you enjoy in-depth documentaries that explain the world in a clear and balanced way, don't forget to subscribe to Talking World today. Like this video and share it so we can continue bringing global stories into focus.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.